What a performance for the Ohio State Buckeyes in the first game out of the bye week. This was a game many years in the making after the Buckeyes hadn't played Iowa since 2017. What did they do? They hung more points on the Iowa Hawkeyes than any team has under Kirk Ferentz ever, 54-10, in a game that frankly was more defensive than that final score would indicate. Instant analysis from the shoe coming up next on Buckeye Breakdown. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Well, hi, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to Ohio Stadium. Just wrapped up with Coach Day, defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, and a handful of Ohio State players after a complete thumping of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Final score today from Columbus is 54-10. Alongside Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. You can find this show wherever you like to find your favorite podcasts. But we appreciate the live audience as well. And if there are some questions along the way, we will try to get to those. You can support us by subscribing to the YouTube channel. And for all the latest, check out BuckeyesNow.com. I got to be honest, I didn't see Ohio State scoring 54 points today. Now, in our predictions, I guess neither one of us were all that far off, right? We both said it was going to be low to mid 40s.
I said 52.
Did you? Okay. I thought you said it was in the 40s. All right. My mistake. You're right. Look, I thought a 45-6 game was more likely. Ohio State did what I expected in not allowing a touchdown when their defense was on the field. This was a really, really good defensive performance from Ohio State. They forced 6 takeaways and completely shut down the Iowa offense. So let's just start there, because all of the criticism last year was centered around Ohio State's inability in a big game where they were playing against a team that they knew would be tough to move the ball against. It was their inability to stop somebody that everybody was frustrated with. And today was as memorable a defensive performance as we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and I think Jim Knowles' unit really kind of took to heart the fact that Iowa came in so highly rated in so many different categories and said, you know what? We're just as good, if not better, than that defense. And they really proved it out there today. And obviously with Tanner McCalister having the 2 interceptions, the first time since Jeff Kuda in 2019, it just kind of speaks to, his involvement, bringing him over from Oklahoma State, showing, everybody the way as to how to do things in Knowles' defense, and then just, to put it out there and have that game today. And that really just shows you how much they've kind of taken that step toward being a championship contender on that side of the ball.
Ohio State had 3 interceptions and 3 fumbles recovered today. McCalister had 2 of them. Tommy Eichenberg had a pick 6. I'm trying to figure out, I guess, the right way to say it. All 3 interceptions were very catchable balls for the defense. The first play of the game could not have been thrown any more right at Tanner McCalister. The second pick for McCalister, I guess, kind of deflected, but it was right into his arms. And Eichenberg's interception wasn't really contested all that hard deep in the other end of the field. It certainly helped Ohio State overcome giving up a touchdown early in the game when probably for the first time all year, CJ got rocked. He got really, really hit hard and fumbled the ball. He was pulling it down to try to tuck it and turn his body, but the defender's helmet hit him right on the wrist and the ball jarred free, and Iowa picked it up and scored, and believe it or not, they actually took a 7-3 lead at that point. This game had a weird feeling to it. Ohio State had 3 offensive possessions in the first 2 minutes of the first quarter. But as things went along, it just didn't matter what Ohio State was giving Iowa as a look defensively. The Hawkeyes literally couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, we kind of expected that just with how bad their offense has been all year. But I think it's more important that, Ohio State really took advantage of those opportunities when it came. It's one thing to have the ball thrown right at you, but, there's times, though, that, a ball hits somebody in the hands and they drop it and it's 3rd down and they get to have another chance to live. But for them to actually bring those in and, the ball gets on the ground, they beat them to it, on fumbles and those kind of things. Like, those, like I said, are all championship defense kind of things, and showing that they're very opportunistic, which is a great thing. And I even said that today, yesterday in my predictions. I just thought that this was really the game that they were kind of going to take to that next level and say, we've had a couple turnovers here or there, but then today there was just a whole kind of avalanche of them.
So even beyond the takeaways, Ohio State allowed only 158 yards of total offense. Iowa ran 59 plays. The Buckeyes had 5 sacks, 10 total tackles for loss. Iowa was 1 for 13 on third downs, and that one conversion came in the middle of the third quarter. And they were 1 for 4 on fourth downs. So, just a complete effort from Ohio State's defense. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Iowa didn't have very many big plays all day. In fact, their longest run was 18 yards. And their longest reception was 17 yards. So how about that? You didn't even give up a play over 20 yards today. Really good work on that side of the ball. JT Tuimoloau, I thought, played great. Zach Harrison was unbelievable.
Yeah, and JT got his first sack today. But yeah, even if you look at just the final score, and really you take away that fumble return for a touchdown, this is a 54-3 game. And even if Iowa picks it up right there but doesn't take it back, I'm not necessarily sure that they're getting anything more than a field goal out of that, just the way that the defense played today.
Sure. No, we shouldn't start this any other way than talking about just how good Ohio State's defense looked today. They were supposed to, but they still executed the way they needed to. And as an Iowa fan, my gosh, what a waste of an elite defense. I hope they figure it out a little bit. This Iowa team was in the Big Ten championship game last year. I know they got rocked in Indianapolis too. Offensively, it was really hard to watch them because there was no creativity. They didn't even try to take deep shots down the field. Even when they made a quarterback change, it didn't look a whole lot better. I'll leave Iowa fans to talk about things on their own pod, but I understand your frustrations because after watching it on tape for 6 weeks and having 2 weeks to get ready for Ohio State, that was not a very good effort.
Yeah, and if honestly, if they had even an average offense, that's a Big Ten West champion kind of defense, if not more than that. I don't think if they had an average offense, this would have been more of a 54, 28 kind of game, so they weren't going to win this. But yeah, that defense is legitimate. And it's very clear that, with the fact that they held Michigan to the lowest point total that they've had all year. And then, for much of this game, it kind of felt like Ohio State was going to be below average in its point total. So yeah, it's a great defense, but it definitely sucks for Iowa fans that their offense just is non-existent. And then, I was surprised to hear that was the most that Iowa had ever given up under Kirk Ferentz. And that's 24 seasons. That's a lot of football. And, for them to be in that situation, and you can't put it on the defense. That's the offense's fault for, not being able to extend drives and those kind of things. So yeah, the score is definitely lopsided, but I think Ohio State was really tested today, and, they'll be better for it.
Okay. Other side of the football. Iowa's defense is really, really good. We knew that coming in. We saw it today. There were some frustrating moments. The difference in today's game, in my opinion, was Ohio State's ability to make an adjustment at halftime to finish drives and to stop settling for field goals and get in the end zone. They scored 4 touchdowns in the second half. Iowa couldn't figure it out at all, and they didn't score, period, in the second half. CJ Stroud, I thought, was pretty good. His numbers were fine, maybe a little bit below average from some of the crazy things we've seen from him, but 20 for 30 for 286, 4 touchdowns and a pick is certainly not going to, to lose you a game. He made a few risky throws. I thought he made a couple of incredible throws. In fact, 3 plays in a row to Egbuka on a seam route where he was about to get creamed, to Marvin Harrison the next play on a pass that just looked like it was going to be intercepted. And then, well, gee, if it's not going to be picked, nobody's going to catch it, right? Wrong. Marvin catches on the fingertip, back half of the ball, makes a ridiculous catch. And then another perfect pass the next play to throw a touchdown. Obviously, the big long touchdown to Julian Fleming was there. CJ did a good job of weathering the storm when he was under a lot of pressure and largely made good decisions with the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think he gets a lot of flack from fans just because there's a crazy expectation for him at this point. Like everybody just expects. I mean, if you look at his career, I mean, he's averaging 350 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns a game. So, if he doesn't get that, everybody's like, well, what's going on?
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, but he still had a good game. And, obviously there's, plays that he wants back, throws he wants back, and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, like, what's the thing that has been bothering them for the last year? It's the fact that they didn't beat Michigan. They didn't beat Oregon. And, at the end of the day, they won today. You can't sit there and you can't look at his stats and say, oh, well, he wasn't great. Well, I mean, he was great enough to win the game, and that's the entire point. So, he's going to get a lot of that. And, especially with how Hendon Hooker has been playing at Tennessee,
No doubt.
everybody's going to be comparing that. But, the Heisman isn't going to be won right now. It's going to be won in November. So, as long as he does well, they beat Michigan, he's going to be right there in that conversation.
So Ohio State only had 360 yards of total offense today. The fewest number of offensive yards that the Buckeyes have had in the Ryan Day era came against Alabama in the national championship game a couple years ago, 341. For what it's worth, especially because the Buckeyes were under 160 at halftime, I looked it up. The last time they were under 300 yards of total offense in a game was the Cotton Bowl against USC a few years back. They had 277 yards of offense in that game. Largely, it's been ridiculous, fairy tale video game type numbers for Ohio State's offense. And a 54-point final score usually doesn't, correlate with only 360 yards of offense. A lot of that had to do with the field position. Obviously, Tommy Eichenberg had a pick 6, so a defensive touchdown helped. Particularly impressive because of the number of field goals that they kicked.
Yeah.
So, look, offensively, I thought they got a really good test today. And in a game that you win by 44 points, it's hard to say that's a really good defense and not feel like you're full of it. But Iowa's defense really played well.
Right. And then I think it's just kind of one of those things that the offense just, there's so many weapons and just, it kind of, Ryan Day was asked about it today. It's like you just kind of find the right combination or the right key or those kind of things. And, you just keep searching and keep searching. And that's just the amount of talent that they have on this offense and just, the schematics and those kind of things. They're going to be able to exploit that no matter how, no matter how good the defense is, there's always going to be some way to attack them. And they ultimately found that today. And yeah, I mean, I'm not so concerned necessarily about the stats just because, like you said, the field position, if you're only, taking 50-yard drives at a time and then ending with field goals, like, there's room on the front end, you're not getting that extra 20 from your 20. And then, on the back end, you're kicking a field goal instead of getting those extra 20 yards. And those things kind of add up when it's drive after drive after drive. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like we said, you said Alabama's the last time that they, got in this general area of offense. But at the end of the day, what did they do today that they didn't do that?
Yeah, 54 points.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think there's a lot of people walking away from this game going, what is going on with Jaxon Smith-Njigba? He's supposed to be healthy. He came back. He's hardly played all year. I am a little skeptical. This is purely just my opinion. I'm a little skeptical about the coincidence that Ryan Day seemed to indicate between Jaxon going for a pass, coming up maybe just a little tiny bit limp, and never re-entering the game, along with Ryan Day saying, hey, he was on a pitch count and he wasn't going to play more than 20 snaps today. Maybe it's true, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like a guy of his caliber, how much they've said they want to get him involved in the offense, there's a part of me that's just wondering if maybe he's not healthy. Yeah,
I mean, I think that the pitch count is obviously true because they're saying that they only want to get him in this this many plays and those kind of things. But that specific play being the end-all, be-all play, I don't necessarily know that that's true. But I think it's more of, and again, this is just me speculating as well. I think it's just more of, okay, you see him come up limp. Let's not take it too far. He's already in that general ballpark area of what we want him at, and we're just going to leave it at that and then move forward. And, maybe they don't need him for the next 4 weeks or whatever. I mean, to be honest, they're not going to. And, I don't think they're going to struggle with Penn State next week. And at the end of the day, if you just want to get him healthy for that Michigan game and get him healthy for the playoffs, well, you're going to have that pitch count and you're going to say, we're not going to go beyond that. And if he's even showing at least even a little sign of there might be an issue, we're going to pull him immediately.
And look, I'm That's probably what it was, right? But it's like when you're watching Ohio State play this year, there are two things that go through your mind regularly. One, can this team stay healthy? Whether it's Jaxon or in recent past year, Mayan and Travion have been battling a little bit. You certainly hope that CJ continues to stay healthy all season. He's been good so far. The overwhelming feeling that health could be their undoing can't escape you because you watch a product that's so good, you think to yourself, gosh, just please stay healthy. The other thing you can't stop thinking about when you watch Ohio State, at least I can't, is Michigan. Because every single time I watch his team take the field, I see Ohio State playing an inferior opponent. I see them playing an Iowa team that has an elite defense, and they've completely wasted it. I see a Maryland team that can move the ball pretty well. They're pretty good on offense. Their defense isn't very good.
Yeah.
Penn State looked like a pretty good team at times this year. They played Michigan and got completely annihilated. I know the score at halftime wasn't all that wide. It was only a 3-point game. Michigan killed them in the first half, and then the scoreboard reflected it in the second half. So every time I watch the Buckeyes get on the field, I just keep thinking to myself, and I think a lot of you probably at home are feeling the same way. Hey, put these guys in bubble wrap, keep playing well, but that last Saturday in November is the game that we want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that ultimately is what can undo this team is if a key player gets hurt. And I know that, people have stepped up in Jackson's absence, but yeah, you just you're like, okay, well, let's get a big lead and then let's just run the ball and move on to next week and then really play for that one game season. But I think that the thing that I do most is probably I look at what Michigan did against the team that Ohio State's playing. And I think, you look back to what they did against Iowa, they only scored 27 points. It was 27-10 was the final score. Iowa hung around with them, and Ohio State didn't really let that happen today. I mean, aside from, going down early because of the fumble return for a touchdown, but it wasn't as if you ever thought like, hey, Iowa might win this game like that. That was never a thought in my mind. And I just think that, I think that Ohio State's probably feeling the same way too. Like they know exactly what Michigan did against this team and they want to beat that. So I think it's just a matter of, and then you kind of look back to that 2017 loss, and I think that that's where that Julian Fleming touchdown came from, because it's like, okay, we're respecting the game. We're already up 40, 47, 48, to 10. But hey, let's tack this extra little thing on to be like, you know what, we remember that.
We just put 50 up against a top 3.
Yeah, and I think that that's really an important thing too moving forward. And you can sit there and say, okay, well, Ohio State hasn't played anybody. Well, Ohio State just played one of the top defenses in the country. It's not like, you can kind of separate those things. You don't have to look at it as Iowa as a team because they were never going to beat Ohio State. Like that was never a question. But you can look at it and say, okay, Ohio State played the best defense in the Big Ten, maybe aside from their own, and look what they did today.
Yeah, without question, they are starting to check the boxes, and there are a lot of people nationally that are finally giving this team the credit that they deserve. I am interested to see over the next couple weeks if Ohio State makes a jump. Not that it matters, but if they make a jump to the number 1 spot in the AP poll. Obviously, we're not far away from college football playoff rankings becoming a part of this. I want to wrap with one other point that is going to be a complete footnote to this game, but true Ohio State fans will certainly be following this. I have no idea how bad the injury is. All I'm going to say is it didn't look good. Long snapper Bradley Robinson, who's about as long tenured as the stadium here in Columbus, was injured on a play when the Buckeyes punted. I think it was in the third quarter. It was a right knee injury. That was pretty obvious when he was laying on his back on the field. The training staff was working on his right knee. He really couldn't put a lot of pressure on his leg when he walked off the field. He was on crutches with his knee wrapped in ice. He had a towel over his head, and a lot of teammates and coaches were coming over to kind of dap him up and try to support him. Again, I have no idea if that's just like, hey, I sprained my knee, or if it's, something more serious than that. But I will say, you don't know how much you miss your long snapper until your long snapper's not there.
Yeah.
And Mason Arnold gets credit for sure for doing a good job. And I hope it's not a long-term thing, but that can't be an area where this team malfunctions, because that's going to be a critical focal point.
Yeah, that was kind of my first thought, the very first, after his injury and Mason Arnold came in, and it didn't seem like, there was no issues. They got the kickoff. It was good, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's obviously a very important thing, because a missed extra point, or just, a bobble, a snap that isn't, right to him or something like that could come back and haunt him in a close game. So yeah, it's a matter of, just that next man up, be ready and do what he's supposed to do.
Fun day. Ohio State is proving this year that they are able to win games in different kinds of ways. And Ryan Day is not hiding how much he's enjoying that. When they have to run it, they can run it. When they've had to throw it, they can throw it. When they've needed to play really good defense, that side of the ball has stepped up too. This team last year probably was a bit too one-dimensional, in the sense that they wanted to just beat you in a track meet, and the defense wasn't quite tough enough. That is not the case in 2022, and Ohio State looks like an absolute juggernaut as we hit the stretch run here in October. So this team will be on the road. They're going to play Penn State next weekend. It's not the whiteout game. In case you didn't know, at this point, it's a noon kick, so the game is early. Not a night game, because it's a Fox game and it's a World Series week. So they're going to play the World Series at night. In fact, Penn State might have its whiteout game tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they play Minnesota in the whiteout, and then Ohio State is a stripe out. That's kind of their
cool.
Yeah.
whatever they need to get.
Some people wear white.
Yeah,
it's a half whiteout.
Whatever you need to fire yourself up. Yeah. So the Buckeyes have some big games coming up. Penn State, they've got Northwestern on the road. And then obviously with chances to kind of try to get right in the last couple games before Michigan, with Indiana and a Maryland offense that should test Ohio State's secondary a little bit. And then you'll have the finale against the Michigan Wolverines here Saturday of Thanksgiving week. So plenty more to talk about this coming week as Ohio State wraps up a really fun day at Ohio Stadium. 54-10, the final score. The Buckeyes scored more points against Iowa than any Kirk Ferentz team in 24 years during his era in Iowa City. And the defense perhaps played even better than the offense did. Ohio State goes to 7-0 on the season. For Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for tuning in. Buckeye Breakdown with our instant analysis post-game show. Try to spit that out. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the best way to support us, and we would appreciate if you do that. Hit the notification bell. You can jump in with thoughts and conversation with us, especially during the week. We like to have a couple of live streams a week to include your thoughts. And if you want to listen after the fact, you can find this wherever you like to find your favorite podcast. Again, for all the latest, BuckeyesNow.com. We'll see you soon after Ohio State wallops Iowa today, 54-10.